Okay. Just getting everything connected. Sorry in advance, the wind is very, very bad here in Niagara. I can hear it smashing up on the door, and the reef in the front has just been going crazy. So if I'm delayed at all, or if the connection cuts out, just note that that could be the reason why. I see Instagram still having issues getting connected. I believe that Facebook is now live, which is great. So anybody who's joining us on Facebook right now, happy Friday. We're just waiting for the Instagram live to be loading. So we have some time. Go grab a cup of tea, some snacks, and we will be starting shortly. Thank you. No, you're not eating those. Yeah, you want to sit here? So I don't know what it is, but my cat all of a sudden gets out of the bed, stops sleeping right around this time and wants extra cuddles and attention. So she's going to be sitting here with us, participating in today's live. Yeah, I know, I hear you. Still having issues with Instagram. I'm going to try to cancel and reboot this. Okay, so it looks like Instagram is not working right now. I gave it a good shot. I'm still going to let it try to boot up here, but it's saying checking connection, which with the wind, it's very possible that my internet connection is a bit shoddy today. So sorry if you're trying to watch from Instagram. I will repost the replay as soon as I can once the Zoom video has recorded, so I can throw that right on. So you won't be missing out. You'll still be able to see it, but unfortunately not able to watch live. Okay, so if you have any questions for today's live, feel free to DM me, so direct message in Instagram or Facebook. I'll get back to you right away. Or if you are watching live on the Facebook feed, you can post right on here, I believe, but I may not be able to see what you've posted. So I will have to watch after and check to see what those questions were, and I will get back to you right away. Okay. So today's topic, or the title that I said, was why is Synthroid not enough for thyroid health? And so I figured before I get into that, I wanted to backtrack a bit and go over the thyroid gland and why you might be coming in with some symptoms. And for example, let's say you've been experiencing some fatigue, some brain fog, you're really cold all the time, maybe you've gained some weight or you're having trouble losing weight. Maybe you're constipated or you feel depressed. Your movements are very slow, or your reactions to things. You might be experiencing muscle aches or weakness, muscle cramps even. You may have dry, scaly skin or brittle hair and nails. You may also even be experiencing a loss of your sex drive. So you just don't want your partner anywhere near you. Does that sound like you? So oftentimes when the thyroid's underfunctioning, we experience specific set of symptoms, but thyroid health also includes the overfunctioning of the thyroid. And so I am going to talk about hyper and hypothyroid and how that's different. But today I am going to focus more on the hypothyroid spot. That being said, this whole month, my plan is to go over thyroid health and how we can support it through nutrients, through different types of functional testing, and etc. So today, the month of February is all about thyroid. Sound good? Okay, so let's get into it. So one thing I have to say, when people come into the office and I'm looking directly at them and they tell me, oh, I know it's not my thyroid. I have blank, 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 blank symptoms. I know it's not my thyroid. My doctor says it's fine. And I did post a little thing about that, I think yesterday, about how, well, what is fine? On blood work, most conventional doctors only test TSH. And so fine is the TSH levels being within the reference range. And the reference range is based on all of the people getting blood work. This is the common range. So who do you think goes and gets blood work? Most commonly, people who are sick go get blood work, right? I mean, we do have routine yearly blood work, but not everybody goes for those. But also, for the most part, when you are sick, you're going more often. And so that reference range, unfortunately, is kind of like the common of the sick, right? And so it's not the common of optimal health, it's common of suboptimal health. But I want to go even further into that. So conventional lab testing for thyroid, they tend to test your TSH. And that might be just part of the routine blood work that you were getting done. And so what TSH tests for is actually how healthy your brain is. Because that hormone, TSH, is created by the pituitary gland in your brain. And so what that hormone does now is it gets sent to the thyroid to activate it. Now, if your thyroid's being activated properly and all the following functions are working, then there should be a negative feedback loop that goes back to the brain telling it to shut off. So stop making so much. We have enough, right? But what happens if that signal is not working, or if down the pathway we are not creating the right conversion? And I'm going to talk about that. And then the very last part I want to talk about is the autoimmunity. So has anybody heard of autoimmune or autoimmune diseases? So basically what that is when our own body's immune system starts attacking its own organs. And so there are multiple different autoimmune conditions out there, basically a condition for every part of the body. Thyroid's no different. Thyroid has two different types of autoimmune conditions, and that is, oh, no, I thought Instagram Live was starting, but it's not. So the two autoimmune conditions for thyroid is something called Graves', which creates a hyperthyroidism, and Hashimoto's, which creates the hypothyroidism. And so with hypothyroidism, the thyroid is not pumping out the thyroid hormones we need, so like the T3, T4. And with hyper, the T3, T4 may be too high, so it's working too much, it's overactive. And so with hyperthyroidism, you might be experiencing different symptoms than we described earlier. You might be having sleep disturbances. You may have an enlarged thyroid gland because it's just overworking, overpumping. You might experience weight loss. You might be overheated or have a really irregular, rapid heart rate or heart palpitations. And instead of depression, we often see anxiety with hyperthyroidism. Now, there are some common symptoms like fatigue, like reduced libido or sex drive. There's going to be some menstrual cycle issues with any hormone imbalance. And so some of the symptoms might look very similar, but they're very different conditions. And so we'll talk about that. So when our body has autoimmune triggers, it creates a response attacking the thyroid. In Hashimoto's, the hypothyroid one, this is very, very common post-pregnancy, so postpartum, because of all the different triggers that happen in the environment, in your body, your hormones are fluctuating like crazy. It's just a perfect scenario, like the perfect storm. And so in Hashimoto's, the initial part is your thyroid, is attacked by these autoantibodies, normally anti-TPO, and it causes the thyroid gland to be damaged. And when that damage occurs, you get a dumping of everything that's in the thyroid. So for example, it's making hormones all the time and staying in the thyroid, and then it's being released when we get that TSH signal. Well, with Hashimoto's, you're going to get an initial hyperthyroid state because all of a sudden you have all these T3, T4 in the thyroid being dumped right into the blood. And that's why oftentimes we'll see a huge spike with your thyroid all of a sudden, and then somehow, somewhere, it just crashes. And so that crash is when the thyroid gland has been damaged to a point where it's no longer functioning properly. It's not able to create that T3, T4 that your body needs. So a lot of people ask me, okay, well, I know my thyroid's important, but what does it do? Right? We know it does something to do with metabolism. We know it's important. We know we need it, but what does it do? And I have to say that the thyroid hormone is one of those things where you're not really taught very well in school about it, but it is absolutely important for the whole body. And that's why when you have symptoms of a suboptimal thyroid gland, it affects everything. It affects your hair on your head. It affects your skin. It affects your digestion. It affects your other hormones. It affects your sleep-wake cycle. It affects everything. And that's because those T3, T4 hormones activate the mitochondria cells in the body to basically work the cell machinery. So to create ATP, to create energy, and to promote us from storing our nutrients, our carbs and stuff, into using it. Okay. So now you can kind of see if you don't have enough of that hormone, you're not making enough energy, you're going to feel tired. If you're not making enough energy, you may not be able to create healthy skin. You might not be able to create luscious, nice hair, right? Okay. So now let's go into the testing part of this, because I think that is something we really should focus on, because TSH is not enough. And I'll explain why. So first, when somebody comes into the office and they're like, I don't know what's going on. I have blank, 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 blank symptoms. What can you do for me? The very first thing I do is look at their face. So everybody's going to go grab a mirror right now or their camera and look at their face. But basically, with thyroid conditions, oftentimes you will not have hair growth on the 1/3 of your eyebrow. It's not in the middle, but the back 1/3, so like to the here to here, it just will be super thin and not grow in fast. So that's a very common marker of hypothyroidism. Then the eyes. So if you get really, really puffy swelling under eyes, that's a sign of hypothyroidism. But if you get eyes that are like bulging outwards, that's a sign of hyper or Graves' disease. So just by looking at the face, we can already kind of pinpoint if there's a potential thyroid issue. and those are more specific to thyroid health. Then we do a thyroid exam. So your thyroid sits right on top of your trachea, and it's like a butterfly. So it kind of looks like this. And so when you swallow, it should go up and down. So we see this, we check to see if it's enlarged first of all, because if it's enlarged, we know that there's potential for goiter, and we can talk about that another day. But then we're also checking to see for symmetry. Is one side larger than the other? Because that could mean that either one side's being damaged or we have nodules growing, which can affect the function as well. Okay, so that's what I do. As soon as you come in the office, I'm looking at you and seeing if there's any signs. Then we talk about your symptoms, and a lot of those symptoms I described in the beginning do overlap with other things, whether it's estrogen dominance or insulin glucose sensitivity or not enough nutrients. Like, a lot of these things overlap. And so really the best way to definitively figure out if it's your thyroid is to do a thyroid panel. So a thyroid panel can be done at a Life Labs. It's just a simple requisition. You would go in, get your blood drawn, and what they're checking is they're checking your TSH, which your medical doctor already did, but they're also going to check your T3 and T4 and something called reverse T3. They're also going to check the autoantibodies, so the anti-TPO and the anti-thyroglobulin. And so those all together are going to give us a better picture of your thyroid health. Okay, so let's talk about that reverse T3 I just threw out there at you. This is one of the reasons why Synthroid is not enough. So let's just perk up your ears and listen to this. So our brain sends the signal, the TSH, to the thyroid. Then the thyroid sends out T4, T3. T4 is more water soluble, so it's more likely to transport around the body. And we talked about how the whole body requires thyroid hormone, the whole body. So the T4 really gets it throughout the body. Then we convert it into T3, which is a little bit more fat soluble inside the cell. That is the active form. So T3 is what actually turns on that cell machinery to create the ATP. And I'm sorry if this is just over your head and sciencey. I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible in the time we have. But another problem is that T4 can also be converted into reverse T3. And reverse T3 does nothing. It does not turn on the cell machinery. It's garbage. The liver has to get rid of it. And so how much of your T4 is being converted into T3 versus reverse T3? Because it could be either way, right? Or if you have your T4, two different pathways. So this is something that often doesn't get checked. And so in the thyroid panel, we are checking this. We're checking to see how much reverse T3 you have versus T3. And do we need to support the T4 to T3 pathway and block this other pathway, right? So that's important to know. And why is that important to know when it comes to using Synthroid? Well, Synthroid, or levothyroxine for the generic name, is a synthetic T4. So you're only getting T4 in your system. Your body has to convert that T4 into the T3. So you can be taking a lot of Synthroid. If your body's not converting it properly and it's converting the reverse T3, you're gonna still experience symptoms. You're still gonna have those hypothyroid symptoms even though your T4 levels are normal. So that's the reason why it's super important to get a full thyroid panel and not just your TSH levels. The other part of this that I always have to address is the autoimmune part. So we talked about that quite a bit already, but why am I talking about it again? Well, Synthroid, or levothyroxine, again, your T4 is addressing the fact you don't have T4. It's not addressing the autoimmune trigger and the autoimmune inflammation pathways that are in motion and creating a lot of havoc. So with all autoimmune conditions, we really need to tame a lot of fires, put them out, so that your body can function the way it needs to. And that's not just the thyroid, that's overall. So a lot of those symptoms that you're experiencing, you may have 20-30% recovery by taking just the T4, but that other 50 to 70% needs more support. You need more support elsewhere than just getting the T4. Okay, so now that I've gone through all the science behind it, I hope that was easy for you to understand and digest. If it's not, give me a quick message and I will walk through it a little bit easier. Typically, when I do this in office, I draw a diagram to show the pathways and why we don't want certain pathways. Now, I am going to be talking about this whole month different nutrients and supplements that can help with those pathways and the autoimmune side of things. I am focusing on hypothyroidism this month. I will add in possibly a hyperthyroid module or live at some point, but just because hypothyroidism tends to be more common in women, so I want to make sure that we get all that information out to you so that you can make the best informed decisions about your health. Okay, sounds good? Looking to see if there's any questions. More common in women, so I want to make sure that we get all that information. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any comments in. So if you're interested in more thyroid health tips and things, I will be doing something every week. And at that note, I will probably leave it for today. So have a happy Friday and take care. Enjoy your weekend.